Now about mindfulness-based stress reduction. So most of us lead quite stressful lives, and it's helpful, I think, to think about how do we manage our stress. So there are a few different things we could think about here. One very important thing we could think about is boundaries. How we can set boundaries around our working lives, for example, around how much we do, around what we need, so that we can get what we need. So mindfulness is really helpful here, mindfulness practice, because we can begin by practicing mindfulness to just get inside our bodies and notice what's going on inside there. Notice what we're feeling, because what we're feeling is a hugely important source of information about what we need. And if we don't pay attention to that, our body tends to throw up symptoms. For example, if we're exhausted and we just carry on plodding along and working late and going out, and we just don't pay attention to that, we're eventually going to become ill or burnt out. So it's really important that we pay attention to what we feel and set boundaries accordingly. So notice, where's our yes and where's our no? So when people come to you and ask you for things, you get a sense of, can I manage this or not? And then communicate that. So I think it's very helpful to know a bit about the nervous system and the three different parts of the nervous system, so you can get a sense of where you are. So when we are in the sympathetic nervous system, that is in this part of the body, we might feel anxious, angry, panicky. We might feel like we have to do something. We're driven to do something. And when we're in the sympathetic nervous system, it may be helpful to do something calming, like meditation. And that tends to calm the sympathetic nervous system. Then we have the dorsal nervous system, which is in the lower part of the body. And this is the freeze response. So as mammals, when let's say a lion was about to eat a deer, the deer might just freeze and play dead. And that was a way of the deer trying to stay alive. So that's the freeze response that still is within us. When things are just too much and there's nothing we can really do, it's a way of shutting down, of shutting off, of disconnecting. So experiences like numbness, dissociation, depression tend to indicate that we're in the dorsal nervous system. And when we're there, what might be helpful is to bring in movement, activity, things like exercise, dance, singing, just to activate our bodies can be really helpful. So it may be helpful for you to just notice from time to time where you are and what you need. Then we have the ventral nervous system, which is in the eyes, in the ears, in the voice. And this is how we connect with other people. So this is why, for a baby, it's so important to have the gaze of the other, to get mirroring from the caretaker, to see the happy face smiling back. That's an example of ventral vagal regulation. So when we are regulated ourselves, we're regulating for other people. So you might see this in therapy, for example. We're looking at each other, we're talking to each other. You could have the same experience with your friends or with your partner, and it's so important because we can co-regulate. We can be regulating for each other, and this is really important for us to know as parents, as partners, as teachers, whatever we do, that we can be regulating for other people as well as ourselves. So things like listening to live music can be really regulating for the system. Sound baths, joining a class and being with other people, feeling like you're part of a group, belonging in a group or a community can be very regulating. And Stephen Porges taught us a lot about the vagus nerve when he developed his polyvagal theory. So the vagus nerve connects the brain and the gut. And when we engage the vagus nerve, we engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that's responsible for resting, for digesting, and that calms the sympathetic nervous system and the stress chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. So one simple way of engaging the vagus nerve is by slow, deep belly breathing. And a great way of doing this is something called box breathing. So you would, if you just imagine a box and you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So that's something you can do if you're starting to feel a bit anxious, if you're a bit panicky, just breathing in and out through the nose, right down into the belly. It's very grounding, calming, and stabilizing. So it's also really important to think about the activities that you do each day in your life and whether they're nourishing or depleting. And this may not be obvious to you to start with. It may take a bit of investigation. A lot of the things that we do every day, are quite depleting, like working, like studying, like striving, analyzing, revising, these sorts of things. And we need to balance all that doing with activities, or experiences, let's say, that are more oriented around being, which nourish us and, restore our vitality, rejuvenate us, help us recover from all the doing and the depleting activities. So examples, this is also very personal, but examples of nourishing activities could be reading, enjoying a nice meal, listening to music, being with friends. And it's helpful to just notice how you feel when you do these activities so that you begin to get a sense of what's nourishing for you, because that will be different for different people. So some people, when we think about nourishing and depleting activities, would say, well, I game, I play lots of video games, or I watch a lot of telly. And I just encourage you to really investigate whether this is nourishing for you, because it can also be a way to kind of cut off, to avoid social experiences where we have this ventral regulation I was talking about. If most of your social life is online gaming, for example, you're not really getting the kind of interaction that is actually regulating. So you might end up feeling more cut off, more dissociated, less connected to yourself. So I just encourage you to notice what that's like for you, and also think about moderation. So some things may feel nourishing in moderation, but in excess may be more depleting. So that's something to think about when we think about addiction, for example. You might find certain activities and certain behaviors fun or nourishing to begin with, but when overdone and used in excess can become really depleting. So another important part of mindfulness-based stress reduction is relating to your own experience, creating space to check in with yourself regularly and notice how you feel, and to make space and time to approach and attend to difficult feelings. We're all going to have difficult feelings from time to time. That's completely normal. If we avoid them and push them to one side, they tend to grow and then can feel overwhelming. We can get things like panic attacks and overwhelm. But if we approach them regularly and create space and time to attend to them and process them, then we'll find that they tend to come and they tend to go. A good example of this is grief. Grief takes time to work through. And when people are grieving, I suggest setting aside 20 minutes a day to just check in with yourself. And you can do that in different ways. You can do that by having a conversation with yourself. You could do that by journaling or walking outside in nature, so many different ways, dancing, painting, if you're creative, but just allowing some time for you to be with yourself and your feelings. There is a great meditation that I would really recommend here, which is Tara Brach's, who is she's a meditation teacher. and it's her RAIN meditation. So RAIN stands for recognize. So first of all, you recognize, what I'm feeling. Then there's bringing in acceptance, accepting and allowing what I'm feeling. Then investigating, what was the trigger? What went on for me? What are some of the thought processes that come along with it? And then nourishing. What is this part of me that is feeling angry, upset, anxious, abandoned, need? And how can I provide that? How can I attend to that and nourish that part of myself? There are several books that I would recommend on this subject if you're interested and have time to read. Tara Brach's book, Radical Acceptance, is really good. And she also does weekly talks, which are free online and often involve really helpful meditations. So she's really great to listen to. Paul Gilbert's The Compassionate Mind is a really helpful book, which is about developing a compassionate other. So you relate to yourself with compassion and also to other people. And some of us, again, don't have the kind of blueprints for that. So we have to consciously develop it inside ourselves and nourish and cultivate that compassionate relationship to ourselves. Mark Williams' book, Mindfulness, Finding Peace in a Frantic World, is a very accessible guide to practicing mindfulness. He talks about the being and doing modes that I mentioned earlier. His book also comes with MP3 downloads of guided meditations you can listen to. And he talks you through a practice, like an 8-week practice, practicing every day. And mindfulness tends to work best if you practice a little bit every day. It could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes. You can choose a time of day that works for you, the beginning of the day, the end of the day. End of the day works well if you struggle with sleep. Also, when you finish work for the day, that's a great time to practice because you're then using the mindfulness meditation to help you transition from doing mode into being mode. Another helpful book is John Kabat-Zinn's Full Catastrophe Living. So in this book, he talks about his research with medical patients with chronic medical issues and also patients struggling with anxiety and depression and the impact on their physical and emotional well-being as a result of practicing mindfulness 40 minutes a day for 8 weeks. Then there's some great apps out there, and I really encourage you to use apps because guided meditations are really lovely to listen to. Calm, Headspace, and Insight Timer are 3 that I think are very popular and quite accessible.